Hi again, everybody. This is the second video in our set of videos about the indexing assignment. In the first one, you went and we talked about the guided tour. And then after that, now it says after you finish the guided tour, you're supposed to choose another batch and list transcribe. This will be a real batch. So let's talk about that. First, however, we're back at the main web indexing page. Before we get started on the actual indexing, let's go back to help resources. I want to show you something. I highly recommend that before you do your actual indexing, click on this basic indexing guidelines link and read through these instructions about what the defaults are as far as what you generally will do on any indexing batch. Like don't spell out a name that was abbreviated, or type names they were written, or what to do with corrected and crossed out information, or if characters are unreadable or whatever. Read through that. Now, as I said before, make sure that when you're doing an actual batch, always look at the project instructions because they may vary from these. Because a lot of times this will say, unless otherwise directed in the project instructions, do this. But this will at least give you a general idea of what the defaults are, and then the project instructions may vary from that. But I recommend you do that. But anyway, back to our indexing. So we're on the main web indexing page. So you need to find a batch. Well, one way to find a batch is to click on Find Batches. And we'll bring up this nice screen that lets you choose what kind of batch you want. What difficulty level do you want? What language do you want? There's a variety of languages. I recommend if you've never done indexing before, start with beginning. If your native language is English, start with English. If it's Spanish, you might go ahead and try Spanish. The last time I looked, there were not any beginning batches under Spanish or French. There is a Haiti a batch of documents from Haiti that would be available for Berthany, our student from Haiti, and but it's an intermediate batch with handwriting, so that might not be something you want to do, but unless you'd like to figure out the handwriting. But start, for most of us, I'd say start with English and beginning, and then you just go and look and see if something interests you. Let's look as an example, as a practice here or an example. We'll look at this Indiana batch. These are World War I draft registration cards. So you hit index to get into the batch. Now we'll notice as this opens up that the project instructions do not automatically pop up like they did in the guided tour. The project instructions are down here. So the first time you go into a project, or a batch, I would strongly recommend you go read through the project instructions. It shows you what to index. It gives you an example image with these draft cards. You've got the personal information over here, names and places and dates and stuff. You've got a physical description over here, a tall, short, color of eyes, and that kind of thing, which can be kind of interesting, but they wouldn't have you index that information. Now, also, the nice thing is on this project, for example, it shows you how to index the card. So there's an example card shown with each field. In a minute, it'll pop up here. Each field is boxed in red. So you can say, okay, number 1 is given names. This is where the given names are. Here's where the birth date is, and so forth. And so that's a nice thing to be able to look and see if your project has that available. I would definitely do that. Look at that. Go back to the project instructions to see that as well. What to remember about this project, additional information. So these are good instructions to read first. Like here, if you're looking for someone's citizenship, if it says natural born, native born citizen, then you just type in United States or things like that. Okay, here are the controls for the image that we couldn't see in the guided tour. You've got plus to make it bigger, minus to make it smaller. If you would rather look at an image with white print on black, you can do that. You can hit this and hit invert. Whatever it might, maybe the details will come out better. You can adjust things like the contrast and the brightness if that might help you read something. So those are useful to know. Okay, so the first question they have is, should this image be indexed? And this question is, again, looking for whether there is personal information on this image that we could index that somebody would search for. If you're looking at a title page or something where there's no personal information, well, then that wouldn't be indexed, but anything with people's information on it would be. Now the way this works is you will first go through all of the images in the batch to say whether or not they're going to be indexed before you go back and actually do the indexing or read the data. So we will quickly go through that. So next image, and the default is yes, this has somebody on it. Next image, so we're going to go through all of these. Next image, I'm going a little fast. I don't know if I recommend going this fast. You should make sure and check. I am checking and seeing that there are people on here, so I guess I did okay. But there's Paul Elijah something or other. Okay, so we got to the end of the last one, and it brought us back to the first one. So here we go. So this is, I'll make this a little bigger yet. So here's where we go in and actually index the information. Now, once again, I recommend you, for at least the first time you do a batch, always go in on the instructions for each field just to make sure that there's nothing weird. An example here is, before, if something was going to be skipped, we just tabbed through that field. But you'll see here that if something is not written or is unknown or whatever, you press Control B to mark the field blank. Now, I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't read the instructions. So it is important to read the instructions. So, okay, let's go through this quickly. Valentine is the first name. Surname looks like Chroma to me. Make sure there's nothing. Type it as written. Do not correct misspellings, expand abbreviations. Chroma. Birth month is a drop down. Here's the date of birth. So drop down September. Birthday is 14th. We just put 14. 1873. And let's go pull that down. Birth town or country. I don't see a birthplace. So it just has. Okay, so there is no birthplace. So it says here, if it's not recorded, you press tab instead of hitting the blank. So we hit tab to go there. If you leave one thing you can do is you don't have to click, don't have to click on each question mark. If you leave it up, it'll automatically change to show the help for that field as you tab through. Birth state, there isn't one listed. I believe we would hit tab, yes. Birth country, doesn't say anything except that he's a citizen of Italy, but that's not the question. So that's birth country, not written, tab. Citizenship country, here we would write Italy. Okay, relatives give a name. At the bottom of these draft cards, they always had a relative. So it looks like L. Chroma. One interesting thing is you're not supposed to put in anything like Mrs. or Junior. So this guy's name is Valentine, right? If he was living with his wife and he wrote down, as was common at the time, Mrs. Valentine Chroma, you wouldn't write that. You would put down Valentine Chroma, even though that seems kind of strange. But her relationship is not stated. Sometimes, or his or her, sometimes they will write in parentheses wife, brother, father, or something next to the name. But here it is blank. Do not assume a relationship. So even if it was Mrs. Valentine Chroma, you would not assume that it's his wife. You would just write down Valentine Chroma and leave that relationship blank. Residence place is, oh boy, what does that say? I'm not going to save this, so I'm just going to make a stab at it real quick. Nervosia, Italy. If I was doing this for real, I would take a little more time to analyze the letters, but don't want to waste your time with that. Okay, and so here it says, do you see any more information on this index, on this image index? Now, the only other thing on this image is this, he was medium height, blue eyes and stuff. So there isn't anybody else on there, so no, I don't need to create a second entry for a second person. I would just go to the next image. And here's the next image, and then we would go on from there. So that's the indexing. So you would just keep on going through each image. When you're done, then you would submit the batch, and then you're done with that batch, and you can go do some more. Now, if you run into a batch where you can't read the handwriting, or it's just frustrating, you don't know what to do with it, you don't like that stuff, don't worry about it. You can always stop in the middle. You don't have to, anytime you can quit in a batch. And the way you do that is this arrow up here is to return to web indexing. So if you don't like a particular set of records, go do another one. Find something else. Don't get frustrated. So you click on that arrow, and you get back to your web indexing page. So let's say that I worked on that. I don't ever want to see this again because I didn't understand these records or whatever. I don't want to do that one again. Or if you wanted to save in the middle, you could hit that button, come back, I'll finish it later, and that's fine. Then you would go, it would show up there, you'd go hit open batch and work on it some more. Or if you don't want to use it at all again, then just hit the manage batch button, click on the checkbox, return that batch, somebody else can work on it, and then it's gone. And then you could go find a different one. But that's indexing. Once you're done, there's a screenshot you're supposed to submit, and my next video will be a shorter one, but it will be on how to do that. Have fun.